On the evening of Tuesday, October 26th, I was on the phone talking to my brother, Henry, who had been providing me with his input throughout this boiler replacement saga. He mentioned again about this guy, Greg Holliday, who I should consider as an installer. Henry had already said Greg's name months earlier, in which I simply had forgotten all about. Greg and I already had some history between us. We had met some years earlier when he came by my house. I was going to hire him to do my bathroom remodel. That was before I hired Bassett for the same job. I had made it understood to Greg at the time I would be an absentee homeowner. He would have access to the property and payment through my intermediate at the time, who was Renee. It would be on him to set his own schedule. But apparently he was slow in getting anything started, even going to see Renee to secure the initial payment. So I ended up elsewhere only because the other guy was more about starting the work. Henry reminded me that Greg is a licensed plumber and very knowledgeable about boilers. So no sooner than getting off the phone with Henry that evening of Tuesday, October 26th, did I call Greg. It was late in the evening. I assumed to have to leave him a voice message, which I did, but only began recording my message when he picked up. We talked. He remembered where I was. His initial question was how soon did I want the boiler put in. I said I realized he was a very busy guy. I said it does not have to be an immediate thing, just sometime before the dead of winter hits. He did not take long to think it over. He said he would set aside his scheduled activities for this coming weekend and do the installation for me. From my conversations the day before with Jeffrey Williams, and the follow-up text Mr. Williams and I were doing earlier that same day, I knew that identifying a boiler and where to get one from was key. Greg was already providing me with some specifics, and at short notice, he would make himself available to begin come Saturday morning to take out the old boiler and put in a new one. I felt since that was the case, I should do whatever I could in the meantime to try and have a new one sitting in my basement by the time he arrived. So I asked him where I should go to shop for one. He said that would be my decision, but added that he frequented Weinstein Plumbing on Lancaster Avenue in West Philadelphia. I decided I would go to the store the following day, Wednesday, to see what I could do to get it ordered. But I did wonder to him about Home Depot, because it was where Jeffrey Williams had told me to get mine. You don't want to buy a boiler from anywhere like Home Depot, Greg stated without hesitation. Okay, I responded. Then Weinstein Plumbing it is, I said. By the next day, I was at Weinstein Plumbing to try and get my boiler brought. I went to the store's ordering department and spoke to their guy who was responsible for such things. Mind you, it was a busy store with a lot of other customers like me. so I was merely in line like everyone else. I did have sense enough to go there with a picture I had taken of the existing boiler faceplate, which contained input-output information. Keep in mind, I really did not have a clue what input-output was or referred to. It just so happens in the days prior, I had been in conversation with my cousin, Bernard, who was in the market for something similar, someone to install a replacement boiler at his house, even though his situation was very different. A different size house with a different type of boiler. It was Bernard who had asked me, "Ricky, what type of input-output do you have?" I was like, "I don't know." But I did see those values on the existing boiler faceplate. I decided that the store probably should have this type of information, if for no other reason than to understand my house is little. I don't need to overbuy when it comes to size. Apparently, it did help, because when it came my turn at the window to the sales guy, he zoomed in closely on the numbers and the picture, then rapidly pulled out 2 brochures for 2 different models. He told me those were the 2 he currently had in stock. He said, should I decide on either, that I could return to his window when it was my turn to come around again and let him know. I followed his cue and stepped aside for the next customer behind me. I immediately called Greg. Thankfully, he answered. I explained the situation. I said I was at the store. I'm giving 2 options for what they currently have in stock. I asked which I should purchase. I was surprised by his answer. He said, "I don't know." I said, "Okay, I'll make a decision, then let you know later on which I got." Before I ended the call, he added, "You don't just have to get the boiler. There would be other things as well, such as if you decide on an automatic feed." I asked, "What's that?" I remember him saying it had something to do with not having to bleed the radiators after the installation, which sounded like a good deal to me. I was like, "Sure, I'll go with that." I asked if there was anything else besides the automatic feed to get today. He said, "You don't have to get any of that other stuff right now. Just get the boiler, and we can talk about the rest at a later time." I breathed a sigh of relief, because I was beginning to think there might be an entire laundry list of things I was supposed to have walked into the store with. I found out later that the store's salesman in the little booth sitting behind the glass window's name is Brandon. I'm mentioning that now because his name will be mentioned again before this boiler saga concludes. I went back to the booth and talked to Brandon again. I told him I would like to purchase the Penco model. From that point, things happened rapidly. He typed out a purchase order for me. He had me verify that my address and phone number were correct before handing me the finalized delivery receipt. That was Wednesday, October 27th. Apparently, delivery was included in the purchase price at no extra cost. We discussed when I wanted it brought to my house, which would be either the next day of Thursday, October 28th, or Friday, October 29th. Greg had already told me he would be available to come to my house Saturday early to begin the installation. I decided delivery should take place the following day of Thursday, October 28th, if for no other reason than to provide a slight cushion before Saturday in case something happened with the Thursday delivery. I would still have Friday as an alternative day, which turned out to be necessary. Keep in mind, up to this point, I had had no discussions with Greg yet about how much it would be for his installation. Maybe I did not bring it up, or maybe I brought it up and he did not say exactly. But I had met with him briefly a few years before. I knew he was basically a trustworthy guy. He did not have a reputation of taking customers for a ride. So there was a level of assuredness with his handling things. But as you will hear throughout this episode, due to the short notice in which this endeavor was launched, there ended up being a series of missteps and misunderstandings along the way. It all began promising enough, but Murphy's Law states anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Not everything went right. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And believe me, I was desperate when it came to getting my old boiler out and the new one in. Starting off with my choice of which one to get, which ended up being for no other reason than because it was $200 cheaper than the other. The guy who eventually delivered the boiler I selected asked me, "Why didn't you go with Crown?" Which he stated as if to say that Crown would have been the best choice I could have made. Then later on, after installation was completed, Henry mentioned that Greg's specialty had been putting in Crown boilers. No one said anything to me about Crown when I was at the store making my purchase, not even Brandon, who was selling me the boiler. Maybe because it was a make I would have had to order and wait to come in. I don't know. But it is surprising how you hear about all these other things after the fact. On Wednesday, October 27th, I go to Weinstein Plumbing. I talk to Brandon. I purchased the Penco model boiler because it is the cheaper of the two available. Brandon hands me the finalized receipt. I leave the store and go home. I don't even bother to check any of the details on the finalized receipt because I've already verified that my address and phone numbers were correct in the previous printout he showed me. What could go wrong? I get home having read through the details on the brochure for the make and model I just finished buying. Weinstein Plumbing already let me know when they deliver it to my house, it is strictly for curbside delivery only, and that it will be my responsibility to get it inside the house and wherever else it needs to be put thereafter. I read over the specs. This thing is 200 pounds. I'm an old man. There's no way I'm going to be able to lift this thing off the curb and move it anywhere else it needs to go. So I call the store not long after I get back home. I tell them of my recent purchase. I ended up talking to what sounded like Brandon again. I said, I need to find someone to hire to bring it into my house. He says, sorry, but we don't have anyone to recommend who does that. Then he says, hold on. I hear him asking around. I hear someone else say, Big Shawn. Brandon gives me the phone number to Big Shawn. I call Big Shawn right away. He answers. I say I was recommended by Weinstein Plumbing. He asks, when am I expecting the delivery? I tell him according to the store, they say about 12 noon the next day. I tell Big Shawn that I don't know if that means exactly 12 noon or later. Big Shawn says to me, if they say 12 noon, then you can be assured to see them about that time. I asked Big Shawn how much to get it inside the house and down in the basement. Big Shawn says he wants to make our understanding as clear as possible, that this does not have anything to do with removal of the old boiler. I say, correct, that it only has to do with bringing the delivered one inside the house. He says $125, which was a good price to me. I tell him I will be in contact when the delivery arrives. I am updating Greg on all of this. On Thursday, October 28th, 12 noon comes and goes. There is no delivery. At 1 p.m., I receive a call. But it is not from the store or the delivery guy. It is from Big Shawn. I already know why Big Shawn is calling me. So I tell him before he even says anything that I have not heard anything from the store. He says that he has another appointment that afternoon outside of the city. I tell him, hey, go ahead, do what you have to do. All I can do is wait. I'll let you know if I hear anything. He says he will be able to return to the city that evening. We end the call and I continue to wait. Then 2 p.m. rolls around. Again, no word from the store. I decide to check my finalized receipt I got from the store the previous day. It has more than one page to it, which I did not realize. I also see that on the second page that my phone number is different from the page I was asked to check. The phone number on the finalized receipt is incorrect. I call the store. I was not thinking this would be the reason for the delivery delay. Turns out it was. My call is transferred to Brandon. He immediately sees his mistake and owns up to it, even before I get to say anything. He apologizes. He says the delivery guy is still out doing other things and could possibly be able to still make it to my house by that day. Through a series of back and forth calls, I find out my delivery window for it to occur that same day has come and gone. The earliest they could do it would be the following day. But knowing I am already in contact with Big Shawn about transporting it into my house, Brandon says another option would be for me to ask Big Shawn if he can pick it up from the store as well as bring it into my house the following day. I discuss it with Big Shawn, who says yes, he can get it in the morning and bring it to my house. I asked, how much more will it be for the store pickup? He says, $25 more. I'm like not believing how absolutely reasonable this guy's prices are. On top of that, he's responsible in phone conversation and has already been recommended by the store. The next day, Friday, October 29th, Big Shawn shows up with the boiler delivered from the store. Besides himself, he has 3 other guys with him. They uncrate it, bring it into the house, and down into the basement. I tell them exactly where to place it on the floor. Big Shawn leaves his business card with me. Despite everything else that went on in this saga series, Big Shawn was the ray of sunshine through it all. I would highly recommend him to anyone.